That isn't what I want at all. I only want to die once. At the end of a long and happy life. That's how I really feel.
Have you ever thought about your relationship to death? Not just how you may die one day, but the prospect of how you want to die. What do you want your death to represent? How do you feel that your life will contrast after an end of a long or short life? Perhaps even how you want to die. ReZero is one of the most interesting and unique introspection into the idea of death. Not only are we shown the ways that Subaru's relationship is throughout the story, but there's also so many characters that have their own philosophies about it, as we see them die in many ways that they didn't intend to. For a character like Beatrice, she welcomes it as a release from our duties of the never-ending task of waiting for someone who never shows up. As someone who spends her whole life with a purpose that'll never be fulfilled, death means the end of perpetuity. As a creation that was task-oriented, the only rest that she can get from this world is the eventual ending of this task that needed to be completed. Even if it was something that was never meant to be, the pain of going on to do something that was impossible was more grueling than finding a new purpose. As a contrast, her companion Roswell, if you could even call him that, only sees it as a means to an end, allowing his death to happen easily so long as his goals are achieved in the end. He concentrates his singular goals beyond his own means, and will sacrifice everything and anything, including his own life, to perpetuate that march forward. With existence being carried on due to his offsprings, his own life is nothing more than a tool in his arsenal to complete his desires. We also see minor characters like Anastasia and Otto cling to their life at all costs at the expense of others, and valuing themselves and their fortune as merchants, as it's usually rough in the world of business or trading, and looking out for your own best interests is first when it comes to these things to handle profit. Kinda. Our good boy Otto was doing his best in this harsh world, but Subaru, at the center of it all, has so much respect for it that the only times we see him take the easy way out is when he desperately wants to save someone. The light novel shows how far he's willing to go to preserve this meaning of what it means to die, and the anime makes it seem even paradoxical at times, going on despite how bleak things are. In the earlier arcs, he doesn't want to die, but he knows he has to. He wants to save everyone in Arc 2 and the beginning of Arc 4. He offers his life to guarantee that Rem doesn't have to suffer. Rem, however, doesn't see death as a means to an end. Her relationship to Subaru highlights just how much she wants to have a happy ending where she dies happily. Without going into the what-if story where she gets everything she wants, the flash of her life before her memories are eaten by gluttony shows exactly what's going through her mind before she thought she was going to die. Wanting it to be happy memories she and Subaru could have together. Having a child, living in a remote village on the west side of the world, far away from the chaos going on in her current country. She's given so much of her life meaning before meeting Subaru to attempting to make up for her weaknesses, the strength of carrying on solely because of pity and regret. But after meeting our protagonist, she was able to think about herself as an individual, able to clash with her ideologies of selfishly living for others, and found a reason to die happily with Subaru. And you know what? This concept of death is yet another reason why I adore the series, as it's a concept that's rarely ever explored. Subaru dies again and again, trying to craft a path forward for a good outcome. And in most scenarios, after many painful deaths, he gets what he wants. But that's simply looking at the outskirts of the outcome. It's incredibly easy to see him killing himself as a moral good at the end of the arc when the villain's dealt with. But pardon me from going from 0 to 100 so suddenly, killing yourself shouldn't be a solution. Sure, narratively it works. Subaru uses information from his previous deaths and eventually figures out what the best course of action will be. But I adore what Season 2 has done, breaking down the complications of such a concept. While it's unclear if in the case of the ReZero world, life continues on past doing such a misdeed, during the trial, seeing things going forward after Subaru died doesn't look hopeful at all, like one would think after seeing the arc. We see the tangible damage this does, possibly even permanently affecting those with the hope that he installed in the people that he thrived to save in the first place. We find out later that Beatrice was wishing that Subaru could be the one that could break her out of her cycle, while Rem's rage has nowhere else to go when he jumps off the cliff, after he kills himself from seeing Rem's condition. Amelia's dreams and newfound hope of what she's put into Subaru were completely shattered. Wilhelm's retribution that was granted by our boy that was tainted by the courageous kid that led them into battle, who just decided to take his own life after seeing an unconscious girl on the floor. These people were heavily affected by his death, and it's so stupid every time I hear the argument why doesn't he just kill himself to get the perfect outcome. Whether the visions of return by death are fake scenarios created by the trials or not, the people who say this are incredibly cold or simply have been too lost in the fiction to see the fragments of realism that seeps into the story. But whether or not we're looking into themes too deep or too shallow, I do understand the darker side of this argument. I've understood a couple of times the benefits of giving up my life for the potential chance of making the world a better place. I guess you could say I've fantasized about it more than a few times. And it's probably safe to say that Subaru have had these ideas well before he was isekai'd for reasons that the light novel readers might probably understand. I can completely understand what the story is going for here though. A protagonist that feels as though the only thing that he has to offer the world is his death to make it a better place. It's the only thing that we see from his perspective. But there's a pretty neat parallel in this, in that his greatest ability is hope and strength that he gives to others through sheer determination alone. Subaru has always been the one that inspires others around him to be the best versions of themselves. He inspired Amelia into trusting that other people can love her, solved Garth's insecurities through brute force. Hell, even the battle with the white whale, he's gathered strength and resolve in so many that fought with him on the battlefield. You know why this punch is so satisfying? Because the man literally orchestrated the majority of Subaru's death as far as we've seen. We're finally seeing justice right as our protagonist is seeing value in his own life. A man who sees death as a meaning to an end, even his own, finally gets it stuck to him by the people he's caused the most harm to. I actually love to see what Subaru's punch looks like. As a matter of fact, let's look at Garth's one more time. I honestly don't know how I feel about death at the moment. It's a weird concept to swallow. But I do know that you should only die once, and that's at the end of a long and happy life. Thank you for watching. It really does mean the world to me that you're making it to the end of a silly video like this. I really do hope you have a great day. And thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.
Me and clean the slate for everybody.